Okay, welcome to My Jewish Learnings, Thursday morning, Daf Yomi, Week in the Review. I'm Rachel Scheinerman. I edit My Jewish Learning, and we're delighted to be joined this morning by Rabbi Asher Lopatin. Rabbi Lopatin, microphone's yours.
Okay, so we're going to look at from Lamed Bet all the way to today's daf is Lamed Chet, 32 to 38 in Yevamot. And we'll see. I'm going to try to pick out some gems. I'm going to try to, amidst the stuff going on, the regular stuff going on about levirate marriage and Yibum and Chalitza and this and two brothers and three brothers and that kind of stuff. By the way, and we will, believe it or not, stop me if I skip this for some reason, but Erev Pesach comes up, right? If you remember. So I'll point that out. So it's always relates. Torah is always relevant and meaningful, even if you're not involved in levirate marriage. I want to actually, this Mishnah about the two brothers and two sisters and this, it's, first of all, I want to recognize that we're dealing with a lot of really emotional issues here. Death, of course, a lot of death, and this mission is that, the brother dies and then his wife dies, the other wife, wow, I just want to step back a little bit. And I guess I don't want us to become jaded in dealing with this. And we're going to deal with other issues of pregnant women and miscarriages and rape and I also want to recognize that there is one tiny place where there's actually a woman, let's say in the Beit Midrash, a woman comes in and they do bring her in. But in general, oh my gosh, it's a bunch of men, it seems here. Now, I think, we could talk about, I think we have to somehow feminize it or, I don't know, these names maybe will just are placeholders, just like Shakespearean plays had men playing the roles of women, maybe you could have women playing the roles of men here. Anyway, I just want to recognize that the emotion and not just barrel through a bunch of things. Actually, it's interesting. There's on Lamed Bet Amud Aleph, there's a whole discussion of why do we need this Mishnah anyway, once we know that there's a stricter case that's prohibited of the three brothers, or a less strict case that's prohibited. Why do we need this Mishnah at all on 32a? And I just love this idea of the Gemara says, "Aidi dechavivale akadma u'mishnah lo zazim im koma." So basically, there was the opinion that the change of mind, which makes this Mishnah a little bit irrelevant. But K'ayid Chavivale, and the commentary say because he loved it, because the Bala Mishnah loved it, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi perhaps, because there was a chiddush involved. There was some kind of new idea that was involved in this idea of the three brothers and the two brothers. Once you have a new idea, don't just dismiss it. Even though he woke up, and we'll see again, it comes up, woke up the next day and changed the ruling, made something that was permissible prohibited, but still, Akadma Mishnah lo zaza min koma. I kept it once, so when you have a sparkle of an idea, and people push it off, and it becomes maybe you made a mistake, don't just throw it out. I know there's a story of Reb Chaim Brisker, a great rabbi, the grandfather of the Soloveitchiks, that he wrote a whole Torah and a Mahalach and a whole explanation, and then he tore it up. He said, "This is not Torah. This is not right. This is wrong. I made a mistake," and he tore it up. That story always bothered me because, okay, maybe it is wrong, but there's a sparkle there. Anyway, then the Gemara gets sort of bogged down. I don't know, is that a judgment? I don't think bogged down. The Torah I guess the rabbis get really excited, and the stam, however you want to explain how the Gemara is put together, but somehow the Gemara gets very excited about how many prohibitions can you throw on top of each other, and can you be prohibited? Can you violate several things, or just say we'll give you one punishment? So on a basic level, from our Mishnah, there's the prohibition of an Eshet Ach, of a wife of a brother, your brother's wife. You're not allowed. Well, that's a whole issue, and even when he dies. And then there's two sisters. You're not allowed to marry two sisters. So what do we do when all these things, Isur Chalal, Isur, a major concept, can one violation form on the other? And so then some say, well, maybe you're Nidon Bachamura, you're judged on the strictest. Rabbi Yossi asked this question. Rabbi Yossi says, you're judged by the first one that comes along. And then there's other on 32b, there's an Isur Mosif that maybe you can have two violations piling on top of the other. I think actually in American law, you a lot of times hear that they're all the time, actually, that people are tried and juries have to deal with like 5 counts of this. So does that apply to Jewish law? So there's a question, there's a possibility of Isur Mosif, like if one prohibition, then you have another prohibition which adds something to it, or an Isur Kolel, it's more inclusive. Then I love it, the Gemara asks, okay, thank you very much, the technicalities, and we're going to see a lot of this comes up on several dapim, on several of the folios. But what's the reason? Lekoro bein Rishayim Gemurim. So if this person only violated one Avera, so then they buried in a maybe not the nicest place in the cemetery. But if they're like 5 or 10 different, and we count each prohibition, then they're buried amongst the section of the real evildoers in the cemetery. We don't have, I hope, we don't have cemeteries like this anymore. But that's sort of the difference, how bad is this person? So there's then neat kind of questions of cases where you're violating many things at the same time. So a non-priest, a non-Kohen who serves in the temple on Shabbat. So on Shabbat, the priests are allowed to offer sacrifices in the temple. Please only do this when the third temple is rebuilt. There's stuff going on in Israel now that people want to slaughter the Paschal lamb, and there's a picture I saw on my iPhone, they saved the goat. The goat was rescued from those people that would sacrifice them. So no, don't do this now. But these are, so if you're a non-Kohen that slaughters an animal, and you're allowed to slaughter on Shabbat, if it's a priest, if it's for the regular sacrifice, but not otherwise. So then we get Rabithiya and Barcapara are arguing about this, and I love it that they jump up, kafats Rabithiya. So you get a little bit of excitement in Yevamot. It's not a dull masachet. It's like a lot of excitement. Jumped up Rabithiya, and he swears, Havoda, I swear it on the service in the temple that my Rebbe said this. But of course, Barcapara jumps up. Then we get to on Lamed Gimel Amud Aleph 33a, the another way of lumping different counts on top of each other, different prohibitions. Be'isur bavat achat chayav tarte. If the prohibitions come at the exact same time, then maybe you get 2 violations. You'll get 2 counts. Just not one. Again, a big argument between Rabithiya and Barcapara about what Rabbi Yossi would have said. So it's not even. I'm not saying it. I'm just saying that Rabbi Yossi would not have said this or did say that. Then I love vivid trigger warning. This is if you don't like blood. Let's say he slices his finger, and so a priest who is a Baal Mum, who has injuries, is not allowed to serve in the temple. So they could do other things. They get portions, but they're not allowed to serve. So not to do sacrifices. So let's say he's a priest. He's in the temple, and he is going to do a service, and he slices his finger, which makes him a balmum, a pretty good slice, not just a little cut. So he slices his finger, and the knife happens to be an impure knife. So he becomes both impure and a blemished person doing the sacrifice at the same time. So I like that because it's like, oh, okay, that's good. They certainly, the rabbis talk about all sorts of issues that affect women in a way that is sort of a little bit banal. And here they're talking about, okay, slicing off your finger. No one's swooning. I didn't see anyone fainting in the Beit Midrash and the Talmud. So there's a lot of discussion about what you heard of your Rebbe. And finally, poor Barcapara to Yufta on 33b, to Yufta to Barcapara, to Yufta. He is... utterly, we disagree with Barcapara. By the way, along the way on 33b, if you remember from Tractate Shabbat, that fire Havara Lalav Yatzad. Remember, there's that discussion. Even though one of the few malachot, the few works on Shabbat that are actually mentioned in the Torah that are prohibited, there are 39 that the rabbis say the Torah prohibits, but mentioned the Torah is only burning. And that one they say, well, maybe you're not prohibited as strictly. You don't have to bring a sin offering if you make a mistake. But along the way, there's the Mishnah on 33b talks about wife swapping. The rabbis we'll get to more exciting times with the rabbis, but they say, no, it's only by mistake. It's not, of course, we're not dealing with wicked wife swappers here. It's only, it's only by mistake that they married the wrong woman under the chuppah. That's why you gotta check at the bedekah and make sure it's the right person. We don't have to go into that. 34a talks about, let's say you make ta'abi var mitzvah. So you're getting married, mazel tov, it's a mitzvah, but you're marrying the wrong woman, whatever. You're marrying someone married already or something. Not a good thing. So what about, do you have to bring a sacrifice if you make a mistake? Again, we're saying it's not on purpose. Make a mistake with a mitzvah. You're doing a mitzvah, but you're making a mistake. Then we get to another way of getting out of prohibitions and bringing, if you make a mistake, do you have to bring your sin offering, that sacrifice? We talk about dismano bahul, if the time is rushed. So we have one case of the mohel, the person doing the circumcision, is rushing to do it on a circumcision on Shabbat and is violating Shabbat in some way, though you can do a circumcision on Shabbat, but he wants to do it before the day is over. Then we get to our Erev Pesach thing. Let's say you're eating truma on Erev Pesach. You're eating the tithes. Let's say chametz stick of tithes. It's like 10 a.m. and you want to eat it up quickly before, you don't want to have tithes left over. That's not a nice thing. You want to eat them, but it's Erev Pesach and you're in a big rush. So then there might be some leniency if maybe the tithes were not impure or improper, or you weren't a Kohen or whatever the issue was. I remember in Riverdale, we used to go to the Dunkin' Donuts on Erev Pesach, and actually in Chicago also. I don't think the minhag in Detroit is that way, but even though we have a kosher Dunkin' Donuts here, but in Riverdale it was amazing. It was like everyone was there at the Dunkin' Donuts, but boom, right when whatever it was 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock, whatever the time for stopping to eat chametz came, everyone stopped. So, there's a kind of a rush. As you know, we're not on Erev Pesach, but we're getting close to Erev Pesach tomorrow. So there's a sort of a rush. 34a, interesting source for women become obligated in mitzvot at 12 and men at 13. So amongst other things, amongst the other idea that comes up a lot on 34b, that a woman cannot become pregnant on the first intercourse that she has. And again, with a caveat like, oh my gosh, what's going, men, it's just a little frustrating, but, and they talk about Tamar, and then they talk about, interesting that and because this is coming up in legislation, even in Michigan, contraception, that a woman should use different types of, and a man should use different types. Truth is, Here it's on the man, should use different types of contraception, either when a woman is pregnant or the first 24 months when a woman is nursing, because they want to make sure that she has enough, she can focus her efforts on the nursing baby. They didn't have, mix, the milk or, outside of the woman as a mother. So 24 months, you can engage in serious contraception, including coitus interruptus, where anyway, you have relations, but you consummate whatever. The seed goes in somewhere else. So, but there are these legislation coming up to ban. Can you believe in Michigan to ban contraception? We're not political here, but the rabbis are very concerned for both the ubar, the baby, and we'll see later of another man not having relations with a woman, both the fetus and with the life of that baby the first 2 years. And so the rabbis were very lenient about different types of contraception. It's mentioned, we'll get to it in Ketubot, but definitely important here. Also, beautiful idea that a leniency that is floated here, it doesn't apply here, but chasal tachshite kala, that Torah, Rabbi Yehuda holds HaTorah chas al tachshite kala, that the Torah is lenient for the kala, for the bride, and wants to make it work in the best way. Now we come up with a 34b, a bunch of men, and we'll get to it. Here the Gemara is self-aware. It's a bunch of men talking, that if a woman, let's say her husband dies or divorces and she doesn't get married for 10 years, she's never going to get pregnant again. That's it. She's not interested. Thank you, Rabbi. A little bit of scientific study here. I don't know. But then they say, Rabbi Nachman to the rescue says, Aval daita li naseh, but if a woman wants to get married, even though she hasn't gotten married for 10 years, she can give birth. So finally on 34b, we get a woman on the page. And Amrle Rava Labat Rav Chizda. So Rava asked Bat Rav Chizda, okay, and the Gemara, there is a lot of self-awareness in the Gemara, I should say, definitely. So the Gemara, Rava says, Maranani alayich, people are saying that you're not interested in getting married, daughter of Rav Chizda. And she answers in a beautiful way, Ana datai alayich havai. Oh, yeah, well, because I want to marry you. You're the one I want to marry. Gives a good shtach. So that's just a little bit there that she's there. Again, on 35a, the idea of contraception comes up again. Isham mizana, a woman who is feeding her child, mishtameshet b'moch shelo titaber. A woman who is nursing, she uses a kind of some way of preventing the seed from making her pregnant, that she does not, shaloti taber, that she should not get pregnant. By the way, moch dachuk is something that is used sort of a moch is like a sponge or something, or like something is used in the laws of nida. Will come up in nida, something to look forward to there in that tractate. But here it's contraception, and it's permissible. So I hope that the Haredi community, the Daf Yomi community, the community that loves the Talmud and loves the Jewish tradition, are big advocates for contraception. When it's appropriate, of course, when the couple feels that they want to do it. Okay, sorry to be more political than usual in this one, but 35b, this Mishnah is so touching because, and this is the beginning of the new chapter, chapter 4, because it talks about a woman who is going through a levirate marriage, which is traumatic, marrying the brother or chalitza, who is pregnant, who is expecting. And then the question is this child going to live? And then, how long does it have to, the child have to live in order to be considered kayama, a real part of this world? On 35, and there's a big machloket, Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, back and forth. Interesting. The Gemara question, is it based on savara, logic, or is it based on a pasuk, like a tradition? And that will come up a lot of times in the Gemara. What is a machloket based on? What is a disagreement based on? Is it my tradition is that I interpret the verse this way and you do that way, or my tradition or something logical? And we're talking again about a woman who is her brother-in-law, right? The brother dies, and the other brother, her husband dies, and her brother-in-law has to marry her, and that is through, and let's say he does, and let's say she happens to be turns out she was pregnant when he married her, when he had relations with her. So what do we do that? Or when he did chalitza on her, because if she's pregnant, she's going to have a baby, she doesn't have to go through the whole levirate marriage or the chalitza, the ceremony that gets her out of that. And let's say he does it. Is it valid or not? Anyway, interesting, on 36, we go from Tiyuv to Reish Lakish. We go from full refutation of Reish Lakish to halacha Reish Lakish. Amarava halacha Reish Lakish. So the halacha is like Reish Lakish. So that should give you hope that sometimes when you think no one believes my ideas, everyone thinks I'm a crackpot, and no one thinks I say the right thing, your tiyuvta may one day become a halacha. Your view that's so outside the pale might become a halacha. Here's an interesting, there's a machloket between Rabbi Meir and Chachamim on 36b about you should not marrying a woman who is pregnant or a woman who is nursing. And the idea is sort of a sensitivity towards, it's a rabbinic decree, but it's a takana, but it's a sensitivity towards the baby that she's carrying from her previous husband. So, and Rabbi Meir is like, if you did this, you got to divorce her, and you're never allowed to remarry her, because maybe he feels that this just shows there's just such insensitivity that you're done. Chachamim say, okay, not a good idea. Maybe you didn't know, whatever. Divorce, you separate from her, divorce her. It's a discussion. But then, when the time comes, you'll marry her. So it's an interesting discussion, and also comes up that sometimes the rabbis make a more serious, a more serious protection for a rabbinic decree than even a Torah decree. 37a has just a great, another one of these kind of warm, fuzzy parts to a lot of this discussion about chalitza and yibum and marrying. Be'orta amarav hachi. So in the evening, Orta, like Orlar Basa, remember from Tractate Pesachim, in the evening, Rabbah had one opinion, Uvet Safra Hadarbe, and then in the morning, he changed his mind. So, it's really a lesson here that if you say something, and you're in a position of authority and you make a statement, don't try to avoid, and you change your mind, say, I changed my mind. I made a mistake. I feel differently now. Rav Hershel Schachter has talked about this. Like sometimes you say something, you look it up, what you said is wrong. I find with my son, a lot of times he corrects me. Okay, so it's wrong. No one thinks that you're any less of a big shot, of a big Talmid Chacham if you change your mind. Certainly, Rava was able to do this, but of course they attacked him because he became more lenient in his opinion, and they said, "Wow, Shrinu, you're gonna be permitting forbidden fats." We get into on 37a. Whether women give birth 9 months or 7 months, or when women start showing, it's okay. But one night, so anyway, they discuss this, and there's sources from the Torah, because remember Tamar, when she was 3 months, she started showing, and remember that's in the Torah. Moshe and even Yocheved she was pregnant with Moshe. It doesn't say 3 months, but it says Lo Yuchalatz. We know she couldn't hide Moshe anymore. Well, that wasn't when he was born. Anyway, and we actually say Yocheved gave birth to Moshe at 7 months, and therefore they didn't, weren't expecting. They knew she was pregnant, the Egyptians, but she gave birth at 7 months. So the Egyptians didn't start looking for him until a few months later, and then she had to put him in the little raft. So there's a discussion of this, but a real kind of nice idea that we had this confusion. If you marry someone and turns out she is pregnant, then we're not sure who the father is, maybe, but they are a kosher person. Either it was the first father who died or the new husband. So we say, because we're not sure who impregnated the wife. So we say, but let's say he, and then it's a whole issue of this is the sister, and then if he finds out she was pregnant when he did levirate marriage, then he has to, and they don't even know, maybe, was she pregnant with his wife, or was she, I got a question, Immaculate Conception. Thank you very much. Halacha Lamaisa with Easter around here. Though Easter is Jesus, commemorates Jesus' death and resurrection, but very good. Extra credit for that question. The point is that the first birth, he made a mistake. He didn't know she was pregnant. Might even be with him. Might be with his brother. You have to end the levirate marriage because she has a baby. And you only do the levirate marriage if the woman does not have a child. And there's a suffix, there's a doubt. But if he stays with her, then the next baby is mamzer misafek, is not good, because he's not allowed to remain married if she was not supposed to be married to him if she had a baby, and because she's the sister of his brother, she's the wife of his brother. Anyway, we have this really bad situation of an amazing contrast. The first baby, Ra'oi L'Kohen Go, could be the high priest, pure, amazing. Second baby, if he sticks with this and doesn't correct his situation and separate from the woman, the second one is a mamzer misafek, is a bastard child from Safek. And you know what? It's worse to be a doubtful mamzer than a full mamzer, because a full mamzer can marry another mamzer, but a doubtful mamzer can't perhaps even marry another doubtful, can't even marry another doubtful mamzer. So we're tough. So kind of be careful with this levirate marriage thing. Beautiful. 37a. I know we have 1 minute. Really important point. Asara Yuchsin Alam in Bavel. All sorts of people came from Bavel to build the second temple, the second commonwealth, and including in them were all types of mamzers and this and that. The chulam mutar mavo zebezen. They're all allowed to marry each other. You can maybe interpret only mamzerim can marry mamzerim, but the point really is that everyone was allowed to get married. And Israel, there's this big issue now. This one can't have this marriage and that marriage. To build the second commonwealth, they said everyone can marry each other. The whole issue here of oh gosh, I'm sorry, we can't, because all the men were finishing up. But on 37b, don't forget the rabbis who married for 1 day. Rav, and when he was in Dardashir, and Rav Nachman and Shamsud married for 1 day, but they got fully married. But it was a quick marriage. They just did it the right way. So we'll end off here. Sorry, but 38a is continuing discussion from sort of marriage and that to inheritance. What happens if you're not sure if you're from the first husband or not, and there's a doubtful yibum, levirate marriage. When there's a doubt, what do you do with inheritance? And the next 7 pages are going to deal with inheritance and the family getting involved. Who does the levirate marriage? The oldest brother, but if he doesn't, then the others do it. So it becomes sort of the next week is a family affair, and that's appropriate for Passover, for Pesach. And good luck learning it. Have a wonderful Chag Kasher v'Sameach. And may your Daf Yomi enhance your freedom, your sense of freedom, that you are free to take the Torah and to learn it and to make it your own.
All right, but Lopat, thank you. Few people can steer us around this much material this quickly and clearly, so we really appreciate it. Never a dull week in the Talmud, is it? So it was lovely to see all of you, and I hope everybody has a wonderful Pesach if you are celebrating tomorrow night, and we will see you very soon. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.